I'm late. Very late, but I have good reason to, because I ended up reading Hunter x Hunter volumes 10, 11, 12, and a bit of 13. So I have actually completed the Yorknew City arc. And to commemorate that, I wanted to show off a little Crollo Lucifer. Have him in the sort of the Requiem pose. This is kind of like the closest I could get to it. I know it's the wrong outfit, but that's what happens when he doesn't come with a suit. I wonder if I could make like a custom, if I could found a Nendoroid that's just in like a suit, and then I get Crollo and I just put like a bandage. I wonder if I could actually do that. That'd be cool. But anyways, as you can tell from this, and as I've said before, from that back there, you can tell I really like Crollo, and I love this arc. Now I get to actually talk about what makes it so compelling, and compelling not only for the series, but also just shonen as a whole, frankly. There are still very few arcs in shonen that have lived up to Yorknew City, and I mean that in terms of the scale, in terms of what it does for the series, in terms of theme, execution. I mean, this arc is frankly just above 99% of anything I've ever read, and it's not even my favorite arc in the series. Well, on some days it is my favorite completed arc, I guess, but already, even though it's not over, I think the Succession War arc is by far the best that Hunter x Hunter has ever been. Anyways, there's so much to say, so I was heartbroken in the previous video because, move my mic a little closer, because I ended that reading right before the end of Kurapika versus Uvogin, and this is an incredible fight. I mean, not only is it just compelling to watch, the action is so well choreographed, Kurapika just being in complete control the entire time. So like I said, most Hunter x Hunter fights are actually very one-sided, but in a way that is compelling, right? And it's because the writing is so good and the dialogue is so good. All of those dynamics are fantastic. So I believe that what makes this fight so amazing is that we get basically no satisfaction from it ultimately. And what I mean by that is this arc is supposed to be a rousing revenge story. That's the way that it would typically be portrayed, right? Kurapika is our hero, and the Phantom Troop are the villains. They did this horrible thing by massacring the Kurta clan. Kurapika wants to avenge the Kurta clan while also reclaiming the eyes that were taken from them. That's a very noble goal, right? But what we see here is we see Kurapika become a monster. And we see the Phantom Troop reacting in a way that's very human and very empathetic. Now, make no mistake, the Phantom Troop are villainous, right? They are extortionists, they are mass murderers, they will do anything for money. But that's the main thing, is that they don't aspire to rule everything. Well, at least not in the conventional sense. They aspire to have a place in the world, and in order to make that happen, they need capital, right? They need that kind of control, at least for right now, right? So everything they do is in relation to that. And unfortunately, that included massacring the Kurta clan, because I believe it's said that just one pair of eyes is worth like 3 billion Jenny. So, of course they would do that, and it's because of that the Phantom Troop are what they are now, this huge kind of network of criminal scum and villainy. So, while I'm not defending their actions, it's still, like, the way that Togashi portrays them is still undeniably in a way that evokes moral grayness and kind of alerts a part of our brain that's like, wait a minute. These guys are kind of the victims here. And that's very powerful to do. It's not easy to do that, but Togashi does it. And it's especially clear at the end literally the very end of the Vogan fight, because Kurapika has him chained up, and he is puts this like basically curse on him with his dagger, and he's like, "You will answer my question, or you will die. Where are you guys? Where are you hiding?" And Uvogan's like, "I'm not gonna tell you. That's my family." And he dies because of it. He takes that secret to his grave. So Uvogan, in this very last moment, has this moment of pure uh, uh, nobility, as well as empathy, right, for his fellow troop members, his family, for lack of a better term, because he knows that if he tells, that they're all gonna die, because he knows how powerful Kurapika is. And ultimately, a thing that binds the Phantom Troop together is this mutual acceptance that they are. It's kind of a paradox because they see themselves as disposable. However, the Phantom Troop as a whole is the goal, right? And so the spider can live without legs and even without a head, as we see at the end of this arc. But as long as the spider survives intact, that's fine. And actually, if a Phantom Troop member dies, they can be pretty easily replaced. So it's pretty unique in that sense because no one is self-aspiring, no one is selfish. They may bicker, but ultimately they are a collective unit. And that's very unique. I mean, especially coming from, this is outside of the world of manga, but one of my favorite works is The Wheel of Time, and in that you have the Forsaken, right? Where it's the villain group, but they're all awful. They all hate each other. They're all constantly scheming. One of them, all of them really, they want to be the one. They want to be the chosen one, essentially. And you don't get that with the Phantom Troop. They are entirely selfless for each other. They're completely dedicated to their own survival. And we see that with Vogan. That he will die because he knows his life ultimately is worth nothing as long as the rest of the troop is fine. And ultimately, when Kurapika does kill him, it doesn't fill him with that satisfaction that he expected and that we expected as a reader. Because ultimately, it's like, he gained nothing from it. Yes, he killed a Phantom Troop member, especially one that was responsible for the Kurta Clan massacre, and in a really dark moment, Vogan actually struggles to even remember that event. It was so insignificant to him. Ultimately, he does remember, and that's as Kurapika is really gaining the upper hand. But still, I mean, initially, it was such a minor thing that Vogan couldn't even, he's like, what? I don't remember that. Well, it was 3 years ago. I must have been there, so that indifference is very chilling. But eventually, he does recognize that and actually say it to Kurapika, which is another moment of humility that you wouldn't really expect from a character like this. But anyways, when yes, he does kill him, right? But again, with the troop, one of the legs dies. That's not a big deal. Ultimately, Kurapika didn't harm the troop as a whole. Yes, he took away one of their best enhancers, but there'll always be another, right? Now, kind of contrary to that, Nobunaga is extremely hurt by this, and we see he actually gets very emotional, and we get this brief backstory of the two of them, how they were always the ones working together, even though they always said that they were lone wolves. They always performed better as a duo. And there's an excellent moment when Nobunaga's with Gon, where Nobu sees Uvogan inside of Gon, and he actually requests that he join the Phantom Troop. Basically, is not giving him a choice, and Killua as well. But it's especially like Killua is like an accessory to Gon. Like he really just wants Gon. And the thing is it's like, yeah, Gon is our hero, but were Kurapika not his friend, I think Gon would join the Phantom Troop. I think he would, because it would accomplish a lot of his goals, because the Phantom Troop have all these connections, they have this drive and support system, and it would probably lead to Gon meeting Gin a lot faster. Also, Gon is always dependent on a mentor figure. We see Kite, we see Ming, next arc we'll see Bisky, and we see Kite again, right? And I think Nobunaga would have been that mentor, right? Because Nobu, again, he saw Uvogan inside of Gon, and because he was so heartbroken about Uvogan dying, he was really projecting a lot of that onto Gon, and he had this desire to like raise him essentially. And really, if Gon had joined the Phantom Troop, uh, in a conventional sense, a lot of the story would be in a way fixed, right? Because, well, the main example of this is that Hisoka, right, we're set up that Hisoka and Gon will have this fight, and then they have it in Heaven's Arena. It's entirely one-sided, and Hisoka tells him like, we'll fight again, and that never happened, and it never will. The way the story is right now, that is not ever going to happen. And I had previously pointed that out and said that that's an example of sometimes life doesn't work out the way you expect it to, right? But if Gon were to join the Phantom Troop, that would actually happen. Because we know that Hisoka has ultimately this goal of killing the Phantom Troop. Well, if Gon was part of the Phantom Troop, they would fight. Not only that, but if Gon had one extremely powerful and reliable mentor, that while he might not have grown as quickly as he did with Bisky, because Bisky really accelerated his Nen growth along with Killua, while it might not have been as fast, it would have allowed him to not plateau, and we probably would have eventually seen him get full adult gun Nen ability. Also, if he were to join the Phantom Troop, then he would probably not have gotten Kite killed, right? Because Kite was in that situation because of Gon, which means that he would not have had to go adult Gon to fight Pito, which means he would still have his Nen, right? Like, a lot would have changed in a way that would actually make the story more conventional if he were to join the Phantom. I know this is pure speculation, and I probably am wasting too much time about this, but it is really important to think about that logically. Gon joining the Phantom Troop actually makes sense. He would actually flourish in it, and the only thing that's keeping him really clear from that is Kurapika, right? Because he's friends with Kurapika, and obviously that wouldn't be cool. Although I could actually see a situation where it's like a condition, like, okay, I'll join you if you spare Kurapika. I could totally see that happening for Gon. But another thing that makes Gon turn away from the Phantom Troop is his shock, really, that he can see so much empathy in Nobunaga for one of his own, and yet he doesn't have this empathy for others, and that they just kill willy-nilly. Well, the thing that's troubling about that is, as we see in the Chimera invasion, Gon actually resorts to murder and blind rage, and gets a lot of people in harm because of that, including himself. So again, with Gon, he's very brash, and not in a way like Monkey D. Luffy, where it's very endearing. Like, Gon's tenacity and stubbornness is actually a detriment to his character. It hinders him, ultimately. It completely cripples his growth and potential in the series. He is not a player in the series anymore. Frankly, I don't even know if he will come back, and he really has no place in the story anymore, and it was all because of his choice. It was because of him listening to the bloodlust, of him falling into the revenge trap that is the same revenge trap that happened to Kurapika. So, all of that to say that Gon raises a very good point against the Phantom Troop, because yes, it is hypocritical that they can have so much empathy for one another but none for others. But we ultimately see Gon kind of fall into that as well. I mean, not to the degree of the Phantom Troop, but it still happens eventually. So yeah, that's a great moment. Another great moment with Gon and Gon, Killua, and Nobunaga is the way that En is introduced is very unconventional and kind of funny, because another thing I wanted to say. Wait, okay, before all of this, right? We get this oh my god, there's so much to talk about in this video. I really, this is why I can't do more than like 2 or 3 volumes. There's so much happens, but basically there's a whole subplot where Gon and Killua are hustling to get more money, and they actually meet this, oh my god, I'm forgetting his name, but they meet this appraiser who actually used to be a scammer, and that's why he became an appraiser, is because he has the knowledge of like what is valuable and what isn't, but he also wants to help because he did so much harm to the antique collecting world, and actually he's trying to buy back all of his forgeries. And I've seen a criticism of this arc that we spent a lot of time on like the logistics of auctions and forgery, but to me it adds a lot of flair to this world and a sense of realism, and it actually is important in this arc because Gon and Killua end up using one of the kind of forgery techniques in order to escape Nobunaga, where this guy, the appraiser, he told them that there's a way that they can do this forgery where they break a hole in another side of it and they let something leak out, and that's what Gon and Killua do. They break holes to the sides of the room and they fool Nobu and they escape. And going back to my previous point is, this is when N is introduced, but it's like before we could get a proper explanation of it, Gon and Killua just get out of the situation and Nobu just kind of is like, huh. It's very funny, but essentially N is a way, it's a technique of expanding your Nen, so it's really useful for Nobu. But that's a great moment. There's a lot of like infighting in the Phantom Troop, which is like kind of contradictory to what I was saying before about how they're like entirely selfless, but whenever there is kind of an infight, it's for a very good reason, and it's very clear that this doesn't normally happen, and it's the death of Uvogan that's really shaken them up, and they don't really know what to do about it. So again, it's like the death of this one character who really didn't have much depth or development. He was just like a big brute. I mean, we see the impact that it has on them, especially Pakunoda. Pakunoda is, what an incredible character. It's such a shame we get so little of her, but what she ultimately does for the troop is one of the most selfless things that I've ever seen a villain do. I mean, it's so emotional and powerful, and completely changes the course of this series, and saves the Phantom Troop ultimately at the cost of her life. It's so powerful, and there's a lot of like tension during that build-up between her and Kurapika, because there's a lot of back and forth mind games of like are we being truthful, right? That tends to be the case with like negotiations. There's a really funny moment where Finks kind of almost blows it by claiming that he already had broken bones for Gon and Killua, and Kurapika just says, "Oh, you did that? All right, I'm not negotiating." It's like we get a dark moment with Kurapika that if it were brought to that, he would have actually abandoned Gon and Killua, and he just hangs up in that moment. And Finks has to call back, "Chill, I was just kidding," and then he gets like smacked for it. But that whole part is great. I'm getting ahead of myself though. I want to talk a bit more about the appraisal subplot, because it's just very interesting, and it's very clear that Togashi just kind of got this like fixation and just wanted to talk about it. And I actually like a lot when authors do that. It gives like a personal flair to the story. Like Hirohiko Araki does that a lot, where he'll just be like, "Okay, I'm going to stop the story and I'm going to explain this weird niche thing that I like." But again, it actually like has a payoff later in this arc. And also that appraiser character has this great moment where he tries to appraise Gon, and he can't, because he senses this weird mixture. Let me see if I have it saved. And he sensed like a weird mixture inside of him. Let me see. Okay, here it is. I couldn't figure out why this kid intrigued me, but I have an idea now. He isn't concerned with whether something's good or bad. I don't see a hint of disapproval when I confessed about making knockoffs, or when the dealers were going on about the vault, but I didn't sense any greed either. There was just pure curiosity. If something impresses him, he's open to it, whether it's good or bad. In other words, he cannot be appraised. And that's very on the money with Gon, and that's very clear in the Chimera Ant arc, because again, this is not just like our pure blood, like lovable hero. This is a reckless child, and a child, like, he is this insanely powerful, gifted child, and he has no sense of responsibility with his power, and it ultimately comes at a great cost for himself. So, very ahead of the game with that one, Togashi. He nailed it. He nailed that in the Chimera Ant arc. Another thing is during this we get this whole thing where they're kind of showing off the items for auction, and then this like random no-name hawker just comes and just has this extensive knowledge of forgery, and I don't know, it's just little things like that I really like in the series, where just a random character can suddenly be like the focus of a scene, be very intelligent, and actually be like a force for our characters. Just a no-name character. Like, not everyone in this world is just cannon fodder. Like, there are there are specialists and geniuses, not like nen specialists, but there are people who are specialized in something all over this world, because it's a world about exploration. Ultimately, that's like the real thesis of Hunter x Hunter, is it's kind of like Togashi's tribute to the age of exploration. And so in a way, everyone has some kind of skill, and I really like that. There's kind of a meme of spot the main character, especially when it comes to anime, because usually the main character is the one that's very stylized, but that's not the case with Hunter x Hunter. There's very memorable nameless characters, or like nobody characters. We get this Phantom Troop arm wrestling ranking, which is kind of funny. Obviously, Evogan is number 1 and Finks is number 2. That's like pretty self-explanatory. Finks is like such a funny nen, Hatsu, where basically it's like cartoon shit, where like if he winds up his fist clockwise, the more he winds it up, the more powerful it is. Unfortunately, we don't know too much about this. We don't know if there's like a cap, because if he could just keep doing that like forever, basically, imagine how powerful he would be. I mean, we'll see later how powerful he can be during the Chimera Ant arc. But yeah, last place is Kortoku. That's not surprising. Shizuku being that low is kind of crazy, because she actually stood a chance against Gon. Gon actually struggled for real. Machi being number 6 above Crollo is really funny. Also, Machi she has several great moments in this. She's probably the best girl in Hunter x Hunter. Definitely one of the most compelling female characters. But it's terrifying the way she uses her nen, how she can just like conjure basically a noose out of nowhere and just instantly hang someone or like snap someone's neck is really scary. But there's this great moment where when the hostage situation is kind of going south in favor of going to Killua, the lights go out, Killua like tries punching her in the chest, and then Machi is like so muscular, even though she doesn't show it, but she like just basically flexes and traps Killua's fist in there, and then just grabs him, and it's like, because it's pitch black at this moment, and she's like, I've got you, like I don't need to see anymore. Like I love that moment. It's so great. It's funny, but it's also like actually really scary. So much incredible arts in this. I mean, anytime Crollo is on screen, it's like some of the best art that Togashi's ever done. And we also get, especially like late towards the end of the arc with Pakunodo and Kurapika, we get like really minimalistic but stylized like water brush kind of stuff, which Togashi will later use to great effect during the Chimera Ant invasion with Adult Gon. That's pretty much all of the Adult Gon scenes. But just the art is so dynamic in this. I mean, you get like weird mixes of like hyper real and then like hyper stylized people, but in a way it's just great. I love it. We have Crollo in his mafia disguise, where all he does is he just wears a suit and like covers up his tattoo. But it's like, Clark Kent disguise. It actually works, and he does actually look different. I don't know if it's exactly just Togashi drawing him different, or if it's simply just this illusion, but it's such a great fit. And actually, this is really the only time, at least in the anime, that you ever see Crollo fight. So it's like he has this super sick design with this super sick coat, and then he never actually fights in it, which is, I feel like that's kind of a subversion on Togashi's part, that you have this amazing design, but then when he actually fights, he's just wearing like a dressed down shirt and a tie. It's absurd, but it's very chilling how he just so easily infiltrates Neon's life and steals her nen. And the crazy thing is, well, the saddest thing about this is that her dad works so hard to get her back, and it seems like the dad doesn't really care about Neon. He just cares about her fortune-telling ability, because it makes him a lot of money, because he sells the fortunes. And he goes through all this to get Neon back. He doesn't know that her nen has been stolen, so it's like, what's going to happen as a result of that? Is the crime family going to completely fall apart? I mean, not exactly, because spoiler alert, Kurapika ends up becoming the head of it, but it's definitely changed. It's definitely changed. But Crollo fights these assassins. I don't even think they're named, but he's fighting them, and this is when he reveals his, oh my gosh, what's it called? Bandit something? Bandit Time? I forgot. It's the name of his nen, but basically it's this book. I actually had it somewhere, because obviously I cosplayed him. I should have brought it out, but I think it's in one of my storage units. But anyways, basically, as we learn in this arc, right, with Kurapika, like, the more stipulations you put on your Hatsu, the more powerful it can potentially be. And so Crollo has a law where basically in order to steal someone's net, he has to see it, he has to ask a question about it, the person has to answer, and then they have to touch his book with the handprints. So a lot, but I mean it's so powerful. He can just steal someone's net like that, and he uses it for like not even to sell the fortunes like her dad does. He uses it just for the phantom truth because it is important to know your fortune, right? And Crollo, when he reads his, so the fortunes are in poem form, like haiku kind of. So there's a lot of literary significance to like really taking your time and reading them, because there's a lot of cryptic hints and actually a lot of foreshadowing in this arc and a lot of subversion. And I love when Crollo looks at his and he just starts crying. It's such a powerful moment for him because again, it's that selflessness. Crollo does not see himself as like this supreme leader of the Phantom Troop. He is just the head of it, and if the spider has to survive with no head, so be it. He really cares that little about himself, but that much about the Phantom Troop. It's such a unique thing for a character like this that you would think he would be this self-serving, greedy man, but it's completely the opposite. It's completely the opposite. And going back to his Judas comments in the previous video, I think it says a lot about roleplay in the sense that Crollo has no self-identity. His identity is just the Phantom Troop as a collective and the roles that we play. And Crollo is not afraid of the roles he has to play. Like, if he has to die for them, so be it. So I think that's why he valued Judas so much, because Judas followed the role he was given, whether he knew it or not. He ratted Jesus out, and because of that, Jesus was crucified, and the prophecy was fulfilled. So ultimately, it's part of the grand plan, you know. And if that means you're damned forever, like Judas, like so be it. You know, it's a very dark way of thinking, but it fits Crollo extremely well because that is how he is. Ultimately, when he is captured by Kurapika, he is so nonchalant. And Melody, by the way, MVP of this arc, I love Melody so much, especially in the Succession arc. Melody's incredible. So anytime she's on screen here, I'm even more invested. But anyways, Melody is terrified because she's listening to Crollo's heartbeat, and even though he's like on the verge of getting killed, he is not afraid. And in fact, it seems like he is almost welcoming it, and that terrifies her. And Crollo is constantly taunting Kurapika, where he's like, "This is insignificant. Like, you capturing me means nothing, and I'm not even afraid. Like, I can die, so what? For me, this is just a coffee break." It's such a chilling moment. Kurapika just punches him in the face, and everyone's warning, like, don't kill him. And even Leorio tells Kurapika, he's freaked out by Kurapika, and he says, like, you kill him and I kill you. It's such an insane moment because, again, Kurapika, these are our heroes, and Kurapika had this seemingly like selfless goal of revenge, but it's just completely consumed him at this point. And it's clear that he's also on the fritz because of Vogan. Vogan definitely rattled him. I mean, it's kind of like memed on because it is a funny idea, but it's a very dark and macabre thing where when he kills Uvogan, he like just so happened to have a shovel, and he takes his time to just build this huge hole and just throw him in there and then just bury him. And it's like, that's not something you do instantly. Like, that took time, and it was methodically planned. Like, he knew he was gonna win, and he had all that time to himself, just laboring away to just cover the body of this man that he had so much hatred for. It's very chilling, and it's straight up of like a slasher movie villain, in my opinion. And it's such a small part. I think it's like 1 or 2 panels, but it's so great. I love that part so much. But yeah, I mean, all that to say that Kurapika is scary, and especially with the Scarlet Eyes. Like, there's the part where there's like during the auction, one of the mafia guys is kind of like prodding him, and he wins the Scarlet Eyes, right? Which are not even the real Scarlet Eyes, which is a whole thing. But the guy like threatens him outside, and Kurapika just stares at him with those Scarlet Eyes, and he basically is like, "Don't make me kill you right now." It's just like, oh man, wow. Talking about the Scarlet Eyes, I wanted to bring this up because this is actually kind of an issue, and if anyone is watching this, and if anyone wants to clarify for me, So Cortopi made the fakes of all the auction items, and that includes the Scarlet Eyes. And Kurapika wins them for Neon, right? And ultimately Neon gets them. But they're fake, and Cortopi's fakes disappear after like a day. What happened to the real Scarlet Eyes? Because as far as I know, I thought the Phantom Troops still had them. And then in the Succession War arc, it's revealed that Kurapika has gathered all of the Scarlet Eyes except for the ones owned by Saradnik. And Kurapika even comments something similar. It's been a while, but he says like, "Oh, I got these ones from the Mafia daughter or something." But it's like, no, you didn't. Like, it's almost like Togashi forgot that those were fakes, and that the implication is he like went to Neon at some point and then just stole them from her. But that wouldn't have happened because they were fake and they would have disappeared. Unless it's like this whole kind of investigation that happened because they disappeared, or maybe like Neon's dad rebought them, but that doesn't make sense either because Neon would be like useless at that point because by then the dad would definitely know that she didn't have men, and then that was his primary source of income. So I don't know, but I mean, I guess like when Kurapika took over, he probably like got them somehow, but then he didn't get them from the Mafia's daughter. He didn't get them from Neon in that case. It's very clearly Togashi thought that Neon had the real ones and that Kurapika ended up taking them from her, but as I explained, like, that is impossible. So if anyone could like clear that up, I'm pretty sure that's just like a glaring plot hole. But I mean, whatever. It's not like the end of the world. It's just kind of like weird. Anyways, that was like kind of a sidetrack, but going back to like the kind of subversion of this arc is, yeah, we don't get a fight with Krollo and Kurapika. We don't, and ultimately it's like no one wins at the end of this because, well, Kurapika doesn't kill Krollo. Kurapika actually kind of comes to his senses, and instead of killing Krollo, he's like, okay, I'm gonna put a curse on you, where you're forbidden from contact with the Phantom Troop and you cannot use Nen. And that's really tough for Krollo, obviously, because the Phantom Troop is him, and without the Phantom Troop, he is nothing. But Krollo always has a plan, and he's planning on traveling east, and we'll see later it's because of a Nen exorcist that's going to take the curse off. But until then, he has to bide his time. So that ultimately doesn't work, right? And the Phantom Troop don't really win, because Kurapika gets away, they lose Uvogan and Pakunoda. So, I mean, no one really wins, and it's very anticlimactic. Very anticlimactic. Like, it's a stalemate, ultimately. No one wins, and that's not what you expect in a revenge story, and especially in a shonen arc. And it makes everything almost like futile. I mean, obviously it's not, because this is important, and especially all the auction stuff is going to lead right into Greed Island. But there's still definitely like an intentional anticlimax that I find very compelling. Along with, once again, the moral grayness and the destruction of like dichotomy between good and evil is very prevalent in this. We see Kurapika go towards dark, and we see the Phantom Troop go towards light. Despite the fact that we know ultimately Kurapika's definitely in the right, because again, the Phantom Troop, they killed his whole clan, right? That's like inexcusable. But still, I mean, it's the presentation of it and the framing of it. Also, we get just a brief look into the backstory of the Phantom Troop, which we will see way later in the manga, not in the anime. It's only in the manga during the Succession arc, but it is so incredible. There's this city, Meteor City, and it's very dark because basically it's like the world's trash bin. Everything just gets dumped there, including babies, and that's where the Phantom Troop grew up. That's where Krollo grew up, and within Meteor City, there's a very strong sense of allegiance to each other. Like, a man from Meteor City was wrongly accused of a crime and was executed, I believe, because of it. And due to that, I believe it was like 31 people from Meteor City made themselves into suicide bombers and killed 31 people in retaliation. So they have truly no survival drive. They just care about looking out for each other. And that's really terrifying to think of. And it's actually where a lot of the Mafia goons come from, as well as the Phantom Troop. So the moment the Mafia find out that the Phantom Troop are from there, they basically call off the hunt. And especially after Krollo... Oh, I wanted to say this earlier. When Krollo was fighting the assassins, there was a really terrifying moment where Crollo uses the indoor fish on one of the mafia guys, or one of the assassins. And basically, the fish will eat you slowly. It'll eat you. And you will not die until all of your nen is consumed. And so they get this horrifying panel of this man who's like, he just has like 3/4 of his face and like a foot and like part of his chest and like a hand or something. And he's just floating and he's like, why am I not dead? And it is chilling. I mean, the gore in this arc is crazy. Like, even for Shonen Jump standards back then. I mean, like I know like JoJo is probably the goriest, along with Fist of the North Star. Like, those are the goriest Shonen Jump get, but the brutality and kind of like how out of nowhere it is in Hunter x Hunter is really shocking. I mean, like, people's heads are cleaved in half, and people's necks are snapped so violently. It's like just caricature. That kill with the indoor fish, I mean, it's brutal. And then to top it off, Crollo goes and does the iconic Requiem, and he dedicates it to Wogan as the Phantom Troops set off these explosions that massacre, I believe it's like 5,000 cops and mafia goons. Just the carnage is insane. It's absolutely insane. I just love the acceleration of this arc, how it just shit hits the fan towards the end. You can see why I wanted to really finish it before I could properly talk about it. But it's so incredible. I mean, I've spoken almost 40 minutes about it. A few things I want to talk about again. Pakunoda. I mean, that selflessness is so great. It's so great. If it wasn't for that, her breaking the promise of Kurapika and telling the Phantom Troop in a way that she could tell all of them at once, right? Because if she were to just tell one, that alone would kill her. So she was so smart about it, and especially after knowing the backstory of them. And I love how this is how far ahead Togashi thinks, is that we get that brief like page of their backstory and we see that VHS tape, and for so long we were like, what is that VHS tape? And then we learn, and it sounds so weird, random, and insignificant, but it says so much about Crowley's character and about the Phantom Troop as a whole. It is, oh my god, it is so incredible. Truly. We also get like a brief glimpse at Crollo's like internal thoughts, where Gon asks him like, why do you not care about the people you kill? And Crollo thinks about it, and he says, let me see, I don't know, it might be because they have nothing to do with me. When I'm asked like that, it's hard to answer. I don't much like to talk about my motives, but surprisingly, or rather as I expected, the reason is the key to understanding myself. And that shocks Gon and Killua. They don't really understand what he means by that, and we never get an elaboration. But again, I think what it says about Crollo's character is that he doesn't understand himself. He doesn't understand himself because there is nothing to understand, because he is a hollow person. He put all of himself into the Phantom Troop members, and that's reflected in his nen, right? The bandit copy or whatever it's called. But the fact that he cannot develop a nen of his own, that demonstrates he has a lack of self-understanding and self-worth. That's why he has to just copy other people. And so I think that that's why ultimately, because they had nothing to do with him, that's why he's able to do it, because he has nothing about himself, right? That is the key to understanding himself, is that there is nothing, there is no logic. He just does, he exists, right? While I'm here, pretty soon after that, with the radio, I love the whole radio setup. It's so great with the countdown. But they play a song called Moonchild, and I wonder if that's a reference to King Crimson, because there is a lot of rock references, actually. And I believe the localization does cut a lot of them. Like, I know Moral has a move that's called, like, Purple Haze, or something like that. Like, it is a thing that exists. And unfortunately, I don't know them off the top of my head, because I did read Hunter x Hunter with the official translation, which there were problems with it, namely that, oh gosh, what character is it? There's a character in the Succession War arc that is, before we're even introduced to her, because Tyson, that's it, Tyson. So the Viz translator assumed that Tyson was a male, so they said him, And then even when we know Tyson is a girl, they keep saying him. They never fixed it, so that sucks. Also, that Japan is localized as Japan in Hunter x Hunter, but that's not actually the name. It's Japan, and it's a clever pun of Nippon or Nihon and Japan, right? Combine them. It's just like how Togashi will just kind of rotate a consonant, like that's what he's doing. And then the last thing is Alika. When she says like yes to something, she says I, and they translate that to K, and I can see the logic because it's like hi means yes, and so it's like she's saying it shorter, I, kind of like OK and K. But the thing is there's a lot of like I significance, like eyeball significance with Alika, so it's like saying I is actually like a pun. I'm getting off topic though. The last thing, very last thing I want to touch upon is this belief that I have of foreshadowing where Hisoka, by the way, Hisoka hardly ever uses texture surprise, but he uses it so well in this arc where he creates a forgery of his fortune so that it mentions something about like a sword of truth put inside of him where he has to follow these things that Kurapika tells him to, and there are things he cannot reveal, but it was all just 4D chess. I love that. Anyways, we don't see a lot of texture surprise in this series, which is, I mean, it's not surprising because Hisoka's bungee gum is so powerful, but still. Okay, what I wanted to say is, Chrollo, as he parts ways with Puck. Oh, that's another thing, is another subversion, is that Hisoka's like, okay, I'm gonna finally fight Chrollo, and then he sees Chrollo, but Chrollo doesn't have his Nen, so Hisoka's disappointed, and he's like, well, I can't fight him, because it wouldn't be fair. I love that. But anyways, Hisoka says, oh, one more thing. My real fortune had said my date with Chrollo would be on Tuesday, and the troop would be cut in half by the time I left. Every step we take amends our fate. That's true in this moment, but I have a theory that I want to propose, that it's not that the fate is amended, it's that the fate is delayed, because Chrollo and Hisoka do face off, and at that point, or shortly after, the fan troop is cut in half. Shalnark is killed, Krotopi is killed, obviously Vogan is killed, like there's, Pakinoto's killed, like, I'm pretty sure it is actually, like, cut in half at that point. So, I don't know if that's Togashi, like, wanted to play into that or something, or if it was just a coincidence, I really don't know. But I just wanted to point that out, that I should look into the volume later when I reread and see if it says it's on a Tuesday, like, that cements it, but I don't think it. The dates are very important in this arc and at the beginning of Green Island, but after that, it's like, timelines are important, like, right? Like, Meruem lived for 40 days, and the palace invasion lasted this long. I forgot how long. It was like 20 minutes or something. It's like very short. But, anyways. I don't know if they actually say it was on a Tuesday, but that would be, like, crazy. I should just look up really fast if someone, Heaven's Arena, Hisoka versus Chrollo. Tuesday. Oh, actually, someone else pointed out, Hisoka versus Chrollo outcome is stated in Yorknew. Let's see if it says something on Tuesday. Number will remain 6 after he fights Chrollo. I don't know. I'm going to cut the video there. Anyways, until next time.